What is up, guys? Welcome back to CageChat MMA. We're here, of course, for the UFC Vegas 17 preview. Of course, the last fight of the year, of course, we're rounding out 2020 with what is an absolutely bang card. Of course, we lost 2 fights within this fight week at least. So we're on to 15 fights, of course. But it's still a banging card. Some absolutely outrageous fights here that you'd probably be expecting to be on a pay-per-view. Probably on last week's card, you'd imagine those sort of fights, the caliber of fights that we're seeing tonight, to be on those cards. Now, of course, this was supposed to be on Leon Edwards versus Khamzat Chimaev, which has now been rescheduled to January 20th. But boy, it's a good job they put these events on, didn't they? And put these fights on, and how stacked these cards are. Of course, the new main event was the original co-main event, which is of course Stephen Thompson versus Geoff Neal. A very worthy main event for this card, at least. Anyway, Stephen Thompson, an absolute legend, of course, 15-4-1. And, he's been on this stage before. He's been on this step as a main event, many times in his career. And, he's an all-round nice guy. He's the nicest motherfucker, if you want to, call him by his title. He got donned that sort of title, I guess. But Geoff Neal, he's come up through the welterweight division on a very, very hot streak, and he deserves to be, in this main event as well, and he deserves to be getting the limelight a little bit as well. You're seeing the likes of Khamzat Chimaev getting, what would have been main events, and he at the time when that fight got booked was unranked. So you're looking at your Geoff Neals, your Neil Magny's, your fighters in the top 10 of that welterweight division going, hang on a minute, where's my spotlight? Now, of course, Khamzat Chimaev set the world alight in August, July, and he's continued to do so in the 3 times he's fought. But, I think you're looking at Geoff Neal here ranked at 11. At least you're looking at, you're looking down at Khamzat at 15 going, you're taking my spot a little bit, almost, in repetition of Nate Diaz. Obviously, today's that famous day of the call out Conor McGregor. You're probably thinking if you're Geoff Neal a couple of weeks ago when you heard that fight got announced, you start making those sort of comments yourself. But of course, Stephen Thompson is a wily veteran now. If you look at his record, 15-1, considering how well known and how many times he's fought and how often he's fought, you're probably thinking Stephen Thompson's in his, 25 to 30 fights in terms of wins at least. He's always there and thereabout in terms of that welterweight division. Now, he's on a little bit of a slope recently. Of course, he looked fantastic against Vicente Luque. Got a very, very notable win over, the Spanish assassin who, has been on a hot streak himself. But, 2 wins out of his lots. 5 for, of course, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Losses to Anthony Pettis, although that could be put down to a freak loss, you could say. Not to discredit Anthony Pettis, but Vicente Luque was winning that fight up until the knockout. He lost to Darren Till, of course, in the rematch to Woodley, of course. In between that, he beat Jorge Masvidal, who's on a hot streak himself. So you're looking at this fight, and he is the main event going to this one. Maybe Jose Aldo would be almost other sort of name we'd throw out. 5 rounds of Aldo versus there, I don't think anyone's complaining about. But again, you're probably looking at fight camps. Wonderboy and Neal probably have the ability to go 5 rounds more than maybe both Aldo and Vera would have done in the time that these fights got changed and the schedule got changed to these bouts. And again, as I mentioned, obviously Contender Series alumni Geoff Neal, hands of steel, got a huge knockout in his locker. He deserves the main event as well. He is obviously coming on a huge win streak. 3 fight, well, let's say it's a 7-fight win streak, but his last 3 fights at least a win over Mike Perry, Nico Price, and Bilal Muhammad. And you see how good he looked against Mike Perry, who, everyone was hot on the tails of Mike Perry, not so much anymore with his out of the cage antics, but of course his inside the cage antics and the performances he's put on are very good. But yes, beating Mike Perry was huge for him. Unfortunately, he had that fight against Neil Magny cancelled. But it's probably worked out better for him. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson to get a win tonight. That's a huge win on his resume. And, it flies him up to the top 6, top 7 that welterweight division. He's number 5 at the moment. So win here tonight pushes them ahead of the likes of Damian Maia, Tyron Woodley, Michael Chiesa. And it puts him in, in line. Maybe, obviously, Leon Edwards and Chimaev has been rebooked now for January 20th, I believe. So, you're looking at a fight with Woodley, maybe. I don't know if he's got a fight booked or a fight planned yet. It seems like he's in camp at least, or at least training for his resurrection, as he's called it, in 2021. So, a win for Wonderboy does it set up a fight with Leon Edwards. Obviously, we had this whole debacle with Leon Edwards that started 2020, I guess, with this whole COVID pandemic era. Leon Edwards against Woodley got cancelled. Burns stepped in to fight Woodley, and of course it almost spiraled out to the point where Leon Edwards hasn't, competed this year, unfortunately, after having a very good 2019 and looking like he was going to get a title fight or a title opportunity at least in 2020. Now, he himself did test positive for COVID, of course, 3 weeks ago, I think. That was announced, and he seemed to be in a pretty bad way now. Hopefully he's recovered, and hopefully we're going to see him, obviously, on January 20th. And hopefully the 2 weeks of COVID that he's had, or 3 weeks of COVID that he's dealt with, hasn't taken too much out of him for a performance, and we don't see a lackluster Leon Edwards, because we saw the likes of Tony Ferguson sort of lose those streaks where maybe he didn't have to take that fight, and maybe he didn't show the best of himself. We don't want to see that from Leon Edwards. But again, to bring it back to tonight, Stephen Thompson, Geoff Neal. If Geoff Neal gets a win tonight, which, talking about the Petch fight with Wonderboy, I can't stop getting that feeling that we're going to see a huge knockout tonight for Geoff Neal. I don't think it's going to be in the first round. I think it's going to be two or three rounds, and I think we'll see Wonderboy control the pace and the fact he's so good at that. His karate stances, his ability to work around the outside as well, and keeping Geoff Neal at bay is going to be very important for him, because if Geoff Neal gets in with an overhand right or a left hook, or even a high kick, I think Wonderboy's going to be in trouble. But I think we see 3 rounds of maybe Wonderboy getting the first 2 rounds in his scorecard. But I think Geoff Neal comes out and maybe steals a bit of an upset, I guess you could call it that, based on that performance and that prediction. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if Wonderboy takes the 4 or 5 rounds and gets out a decision win, because he's so experienced, so talented, and again, he's been in the spot plenty of times before, whereas Geoff Neal hasn't main evented a fight yet. It also depends on how their camps went, of course. For the majority of their camp, they was expecting a 3-round fight, and then 3 weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago, it's been given an extra 10 minutes on the card and on the fight. So how are they going to be able to cope with that? I think Wonderboy's going to cope with that phenomenally, because he's been there before. He's had many 5-round fights. I think other than the Masvidal fight, all of his past 4 or 5 fights have been 5-rounders. So he's going to be okay with it. It's just whether if Geoff Neal, with the power he possesses, if he's going to go in there for the first 3 rounds, looking for the knockout, if it does hit that 4th round, is he going to have enough left in that gas tank to get the finish, and especially if he's 3 rounds down, maybe, because Wonderboy can do that. Once he's 3 rounds down, I don't see him getting the win, especially if he's gassed himself out. But again, obviously Vicente Luque wasn't a 5-round fight, but Pettis, Darren Till, Woodley, both times all 5-round fights. So he's very much capable of going the full distance. And we look at the Taylor tape, of course. We've got Thompson, 15-4-1 and 13-2, 6' versus 5'11". Both came in at 170, equal reach as well, and 1 inch reach, leg reach of the large there for Thompson, which could be pivotal for tonight. With his karate stance, as we mentioned, his kicking, his side kicks that are so beautifully crafted, and he's such a talented guy. I'd like to see him karate combat in the near future, if and when he's done with his MMA career at least. I think he's still got a year or 2 in him, but he is 37, going into 38 at the start of 2021. So his age is pushing a bit, isn't it? But again, he's still very much at the elite of the welterweight division, and still doesn't need to, he's got no questions or qualms whether he could be one of those 60 that are going to be cut before the end of the year. Now, one of those who could be cut, and that could be a very bold prediction, is Jose Aldo. If he gets another loss tonight, maybe the UFC, we're seeing big names, Yoel Romero, being the biggest of them, getting cut after a couple losses. And Jose Aldo loses tonight. He's 4 losses in a row, and that could be, detrimental for him. He's, got 2 wins in his last 6 if he loses tonight. So I do question whether Jose Aldo, if he gets a win tonight, obviously he's secure in the UFC. But if Marlon Vera puts a good beating on him, and a confident beating, not maybe a flash knockout inside 60 seconds, or a counter punch, you could say, after Jose Aldo dominated for 2 rounds. But if Chito there comes out, puts a very good performance on, similar to like he did against Sean O'Malley, Jose Aldo could be on the chopping block tonight, and maybe you're looking at Bellator, pick him up and you get, Aldo versus Pitbull or something like that sort of caliber of fight. Obviously, he's at the bantamweight division now, so maybe takes an Archuleta. But, there's some big fights over there in Bellator for him. And obviously, we'll take a look tonight. 28-7, 16-6-1, 5-7 versus 5-8. Both of them came in on weight. And you got the reach and leg reach advantage there by half an inch for Chito there. It's coming into this one on a huge hot streak, of course, after beating Sean OMalley. Back in August now, see Sean OMalley came back with a resurgence this year, but unfortunately suffered that quite brutal leg injury, I think, and he's not been able to take it too well. That lost him a lot of fans, but obviously Chito there on the back of that gained a lot of fans and showed the killer he is. And I still think bantamweight division, if you're going from 1 to 15, I think the bantamweight division is the best that we've got in, maybe even in the sport, but definitely in the UFC. You're looking at Petr Yan versus Marlon Vera, telling me you're not signing up to watch that fight, and that's a champion versus down to 15. There's not many divisions where you're looking at going, if the champion faces a 15th ranked guy, I don't know who I'd pick on that one. With no disrespect to Petr Yan, I think it would be an equally close fight as Petr Yan, Aljamain Sterling, perhaps, or Corey Sandhagen even. But again, Jose Aldo is 7th in the rankings at the moment, and a winter night here for Marlon Vera would certainly boost him up into that top 10 and certainly put him on course maybe for TJ Dillashaw, perhaps. Obviously, he returns in January. He's going to want to fight. It looks like Sandhagen's fighting Frankie Edgar. Cody Garbrandt needs a fight. He seems to be aiming up for Sean OMalley at the moment. Those two are going back and forth. Of course, Cody Garbrandt could be going for Figueiredo, but obviously with what happened last week, that's going to be pushed back closer to the rematch, and rightfully so. But there's some big fights. Pedro Munoz, I think, would be a good one. Obviously, Merab Dvalishvili is looking for a fight too, so maybe if Vera gets a quick win in it tonight, quickly turn that around and get that fight booked too. But again, bantamweight division is absolutely smoked at the moment. The fact that we have got the likes of Frankie Edgar, Dominic Cruz, Jose Aldo, TJ Dillashaw, Cody Garbrandt, the names are there too. It's not like a division where it's absolutely class, but it might not sell and enough pay-per-views. It might not be easy on the casual market, but these are all class opponents, and obviously now you've got Petr Yan at the helm of that division. Henry Cejudo could come back, of course, but it's more likely he's going to come back at featherweight, or maybe flyweight if him and Figueiredo keep going together. But yes, I can't see how. I don't see a Jose Aldo win tonight. I do think Vera gets the win tonight, and I think he looks very well doing so as well. I think he could get a knockout finish tonight. But again, Aldo's a veteran. He's been there, done that with every single sort of style you could see from MMA, and he could definitely put on a decision win. I think he's still got hard done by that Marlon Vera defeat that should have been a unanimous decision in his favour. But unfortunately, the sport doesn't work like that. And obviously, he did get dominated by Petr Yan. Of course, we know how good he is. So yes, yeah, I'm thinking we see a Marlon Vera win tonight. I think we see him push up those rankings, and maybe go into 2021 is maybe one to look out for a title opportunity, perhaps. Now we move on to maybe the most anticipated fight in terms of fun and enjoyability, but I think this one's definitely not going 3 rounds. It is Mika Pereira versus Chaos Williams. Now, Chaos Williams was an absolute monster in his last fight. That stare down from him entering the cage to his opponent, Abdul Razak Al Hassan, making his walk to the cage. He just stared him down for the entire time. And once they stepped into the cage, it was 30 seconds, and that was all she wrote in that one. And it was a scary knockout too. I think Abdul Razak Al Hassan was down for at least 30 seconds to a minute. And it took him a little while to get back, get his bearings back with him. But again, Chaos Williams, I think it's hard to look past him, but Mika Pereira does bring it on the night, and he's a showman. And sometimes that works against him. It worked against him against Tristan Connolly and Diego Sanchez, but he came back against Salim Imadev and got a fantastic win, to the point where he's slapping him in the fight and trying to egg him on and sort of make Salim very unhappy, and it worked, but it worked in his favour. But it is hard to like Mika Pereira. I see the talent in him, and I think he's someone you can look at who can be a top 15 guy, but I think sometimes he doesn't let his fighting do the talking enough. And I think for me, that's going to be his downfall, and especially tonight. I think if he starts, doing Imanari rolls, all that sort of thing, jumping off the cage, I think Chaos Williams does get to him, and I think Chaos Williams has the ability to keep calm. But again, if Mika Pereira can get under Chaos Williams' skin, maybe we see a different fight from Williams, because he does seem to be very zoned in. And if you're throwing the unorthodox approach at him, maybe he doesn't come back to that so well. Maybe Miko Pereira does get the win, but we look at the teletape, of course. 24-11 versus 10-1, 6-1 versus 6, both at 170, of course. Big reach advantage there by 4 inches there for Chaos Williams, and a leg reach advantage there for Miko Pereira. But I think this could be where the making of Miko Pereira happens. Maybe we see Diego Sanchez is a legend, and he should have won that fight, but the illegal knee obviously got him the DQ that night. He beat Danny Roberts in his debut, so he's 2-2 tonight, and it's going to stay because he's a fan favorite. He's someone who fans like to see during the fight week as well. But again, I think Chaos Williams gets the job done tonight. I think we start seeing someone who's very, very scary again in that welterweight division, which is equally as stacked. Maybe it's the bantamweight division. Maybe it's a bit more spread out in terms of talent pool or skill level, should I say. You see Kamaru Usman dominating at the top, Colby Covington dominating at the top. And then there's a little breakdown, you could say, in football terms, of Champions League, Europa League spots from Masvidal down to Woodley, perhaps. But yes, I'm going for Chaos Williams tonight to get the win. And that moves on nicely to Marlon Vera, as I said, Rob Font, of course. The former bantamweight challenger obviously lost to Henry Cejudo. He's had a hard time with it a little bit. Albeit he had those phenomenal wins going into that title fight. He's almost become a forgotten man in the bantamweight division. Obviously, he's still very popular. He's still probably only one win away from a title opportunity once again. Obviously, Aljamain's done, and Petr Yan needs to be rebooked unless they give him the Owen Hart treatment and screw him over to give him someone like a TJ Dillashaw to Petr Yan. I don't know. But he's up against Rob Font tonight. And again, a good fight, a good scrap. But I do see Marlon Vera getting the win here tonight. Rob Font down in 11 in the UFC rankings, of course. And Marlon Vera still up in third, only behind Corey Sandhagen, Aljamain Sterling, and of course the champion, Petr Yan tonight. So it's a tough one, and it's a shame because obviously Marlon Vera's Corey Sandhagen was a main event bout as well, where I believe Marlon Vera did gas out. He had a very good first round, and obviously Sandhagen got him out in the second round. But again, he beat Jose Aldo very controversially. He could very easily be walking into this on a 3-fight loss streak, perhaps. So it depends on which one shows up. If it's the killer, if you're if you're expecting a first round win, you're going to say, Marlon Vera, and hopefully he's learned from his previous 2 out of 3 bouts that he does tire out in over 3 rounds. So let's see how he looks tonight. But again, Rob Font, if he gets a win tonight, that's huge for him. That pushes him up into title contention immediately, beating Marlon Vera, who only 2-3 fights ago was fighting for that title. That was vacant and unfortunately lost to Henry Cejudo. But of course, had Henry Cejudo in a lot of trouble in parts of that fight and probably could have got him out in the first round. But Triple C, he weathered the storm and came out in the third round, and got that win and became champ. But Rob Font 17-4, again on a 2-fight win streak after beating Sergio Pettis, Ricky Simone, lost to Rafael Sancho, beat Thomas Almeida before that, and then lost to Pedro Munoz. So there's a couple of names that a win tonight could see him revisit. Perhaps Rafael Sancho needs to get back in the win column after that horrible knockout against Cody Garbrandt back in July, August time. Maybe September, actually, start of September. But again, Rob Font, Jimmy Rivera, maybe. Frankie Edgar, obviously, fighting Sandhagen. Maybe make a Rob Font, Cody Garbrandt. Maybe make that fight if that win works its way out there, maybe. But again, take a look at the tape. Obviously, 23-7-1 versus 17-4, 5'6" versus 5'8" in height. Both of them in that bantamweight division at 135. Huge reach advantage there for Rob Font, obviously by 4.5 inches there, and obviously 1.5 reach advantage in the legs as well. So it could be a tough night for Marlon Vera, especially if he doesn't come in too confident. He seems to maybe miss the crowd, perhaps. And obviously, we're still in the UFC Apex. It could be the last event without fans. Obviously, UFC 257 is seemingly going to have fans. I don't know whether the 2 before that are going to have fans, but 257 definitely seemingly is going to have fans with Conor McGregor versus Poirier 2. So maybe this is the last live event, at least in the States and in the UFC, that we see without fans, perhaps. And it would be nice to get some fans back, I guess. I think Cage Warriors in the UK, at least, He's proposing 1,000 for April, so maybe the UFC we see something similar. And of course, the opening main card bout, and one that comes with a lot of controversy, is Marcin Tybura versus Greg Hardy. Obviously, 20-6 versus 7-2, 6-3 versus 6-5, 249 versus the absolute limit of the heavyweights in 265. I think Greg Hardy actually came in on 266 on the day. 78 inch reach there for Tybura versus 80.5 for Hardy, and then 46 and 44 leg reach respectively. And Greg Hardy, it's a tough one with him, isn't it? It's with his past, at least outside of MMA, it makes it very, very hard to like him and to back him, and you can't condone what anything done. But once he steps into the octagon, he's one bloody scary man. I can't lie. He went 5 rounds with Volkov, and for me, albeit he lost that fight, he showed some determination, some grit, and that he wants to stay here. He's not using MMA as a little bit of a bounce back because he couldn't make it out in football. He's come back from that loss with 2 wins against Jorgen De Castro and Maurice Green, and a win against Marcin Tybura. Unfortunately, for some, means that he's legit, and he hits so hard since that loss to Alan Crowder, the no contest to Ben Sosoli, of course, after what Asthma Pump Gate, but he's got wins over Juan Adams, of course, and I think he gets the win tonight. I think he hits too hard for Marcin Tybura, but again, Polish power is king at the moment, isn't it? Obviously, we have the hope at the light heavyweight division, the champion, of course, and there's something going on in Poland, as there is in Georgia. Italy's having a rise in MMA, and obviously still at Ioane and Jacek, you've got Karolina Kowalkiewicz in the women's roster. But again, Marcin Tybura gets a win here tonight. He pushes himself up, and it would be good for him. It's a good name to get a win over Greg Hardy because he is a very dislikable figure, and I think everyone's backing Marcin Tybura tonight, at least from a moral standpoint, and maybe that's probably the right thing to do. But again, Marcin Tybura is coming in on a 3-fight win streak. Maxim Grishin, Sergey Spivak, and of course, most recently, Ben Rothwell, all unanimous decision wins after losses to Sakai, of course, and Shamal Abdurakhimov. So, he's turned the form around, and he's 35 years of age. Is he a little bit... he's probably in heavyweight prime. I was going to say, is he a little bit too past it now? But he is in heavyweight prime. And obviously, Prince of Warriors, 32 years of age in himself in his prime, for a heavyweight too. I do think he's going to win, though, Greg Hardy. And it could be quite a vicious knockout here, as we've got Darren Wynn versus Arroyo playing on the TV at the moment. My apologies. And of course, Anthony Pettis is fighting Alex Moreno. It could be, I think, most definitely last time we see Anthony Pettis as well. It's the last fight on his UFC contract at the moment. And I think win or loss, we see him for the final time. I think he moves over to Bellator, where Sergio, his younger brother's had a lot of success at the moment in that bantamweight division. And I think we see him maybe at lightweight, maybe most likely at welterweight still. I don't know if he still wants to be cut in 55. But, he's come out and said he's had a lot of troubles with drink and depression over the last, few months in the past year. And we don't see that enough from fighters. Obviously, we are in quite a heavily dominated in terms of fight. We are in a sport where, the outside looking in, you're probably thinking these guys are very tough, and maybe we look at them physically and almost equate that to their mental state as well. But we don't see that enough from fighters, and it's nice to see. Rose Namajunas came out a couple of months ago saying that the pressure of her being champion and whatnot was too much for Robert Whittaker. Darren Till has kept it very real recently, and we're seeing the real side fighters. And I think as fans, we need to back behind that. We see a lot of fans clowning fighters who come out and say, that have been very open and honest with us as fans. They don't need to be. They can be locked away, in their homes. But obviously, with the rise of them, they are now sort of role models for us, and with a lot of fans that people look up to. But yes, I think Pettis. Unfortunately, this is the last time we see him, and it'd be nice to see him get a win to bow out his UFC career when it obviously came over from WEC and has had a fantastic career. Obviously, his highlight is probably the kick against Benson Henderson off the cage, but he beat Donald Cerrone this year, of course, at 2-9. But before that, 2 losses to Nate Diaz and Diego Ferreira, and Alex Moreno is coming off a very good win as well. He's coming off beating Reece McKee, isn't he? Of course, but Yeah, I don't know which way this fight goes, but I think we're gonna back Pettis tonight, and of course, I think we're seeing Bow Wow. I don't think he leaves his gloves in the octagon because I don't think he's retiring. But yeah, I think it's the last time we see Anthony Pettis in the UFC. But yes, I think it's a good place to leave it there, guys. Obviously, we've got fights going on at the moment. I'm a little bit late with this, but I do apologise. But yes, a favourite moment of 2020 after this tonight, of course, I'll be doing a load of top 5 content, but up until the schedule returns in 2021. So yes, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Make sure to hit like and follow on Facebook too if you're watching over there. And I'll see you guys on the next video.